From the land of lakes, this is 10,000 Takes. Brought to you by Minnesota Score Radio. Wally and Eric back for yet another week as we slice and dice the always busy, always topical, super saturated Minnesota sports scene. And Wally, we do indeed, as usual, have plenty to chew on. I think we have the Twins who are on top of the AL Central, where they've been most of the year. Oh, right. By the way. And, of course, the Minnesota Vikings, their preseason home opener on Saturday. Counterfeit football inside the glass house. the perfect recipe for you to have a perfect night.
No, I will not be in the state of Minnesota for that. I'm leaving town. Well, we'll get into the purple because we're going to talk to Jeff Robinson coming up in a little bit here, former player personnel guy for the Minnesota Vikings. But you did mention Twins out of the box, and I really think, and I've said this to you here for the last couple of weeks now since the trade deadline. I think if the Twins can play 500 ball here down the stretch, they're going to be fine. What they need to do is figure out, how are they going to approach the postseason? You probably need a 3-man rotation in the postseason at minimum. And Sonny Gray's been pretty good most of the year. Pablo Lopez has been better of late, and, he's a little inconsistent early. And then Kenta Maeda, I think, has been that third guy that has really given them a lift here over the last several weeks since he came off the injury list. So I think with those three, they're in good shape. The big question, though, is going to be hitting the baseball. When they lose, they're not scoring many runs, and that's been a problem all year, particularly against left-handed pitching.
Yeah, and you're probably not going to breeze through the postseason relying on the long ball, just hitting taters. You're going to have to, shrink it down a bit, maybe go station to station, make contact, not just go up there and whiff. I think the first thing, though, is they need to wrap up the division, and that's a long ways down the road. Still, they have a lot of baseball left. They've allowed Cleveland to stay, in the mix a bit. Right. I mean, it's amazing because the Guardians front office doesn't seem to care. Obviously, the players still have pride. They're trying to win.
Of course.
But I think what they need to do is, win the AL Central by a long shot, put these pretenders way behind them in the rearview mirror, and then get some mojo for the postseason. Because October baseball, as we all know, is a lot different than the regular season, and everything, is condensed. And you do have to have the pitching, as you said. They've got this 18-game postseason losing streak that's, like King Kong on their back. Now, a lot of these guys had nothing to do with it, but they're still going to hear about it. So they need to get into the playoffs, find a way to win a game and then a series, and we'll see. It's funny. I think there's a lot of skepticism about the Twins because of the postseason losing streak, and they're in the most mediocre division in Major League Baseball. You put them in any other division, and they would struggle to make the playoffs as a wild card.
Right.
But if they can even win a series, they'll flip the script in this town because this is a title desert, the Twin Cities, as we know. Nobody's winning anything. And if the Twins can just get on any kind of a run, they'll become the darlings of Minnesota again.
As of when we recorded this particular episode of this week's show, the Twins would match up with Tampa in the wild card round, or the first round, so to speak. Tampa's been okay for the last couple of months. They were really good early.
They were 13-0.
They were
best start in MLB history.
They came out of the box swinging, but they have, with some injuries, most notably Shane McClanahan, who was on track to be the Cy Young Award winner the way he was going early.
Wander Franco with
his, misdeeds. So we shall see how this all plays out, but that wouldn't be a horrible matchup. Cleveland took them out in 3 games last year. Let's not forget that. Or maybe they swept them. I don't recall. But the point being is, in a 3-game series, anything can happen. Yeah, that's why I hated that game 3. That game 163. Yeah. I hated that. I liked it to make the playoffs, but when they introduced it as a gimmick, that
worked well in Kansas City. I know that was the year The Royals knocked out John Lester and the Oakland A's in that one game play, and I think it was down at Kauffman Stadium. And then all of a sudden, the Royals are in the World Series. So it's funny how it can be a springboard for some teams, and it's devastating for others, especially if you're really
one
good.
game.
Yeah, 2 years ago, the Dodgers had well over 100 wins, and they had to play that one game against St. Louis just to punch a ticket and go play the Giants next. So. Yeah, I just think the Minnesota Twins, there's a lot of good things about the team. I mean, when you're talking about maybe making the playoffs, that's huge, but it's all going to come down to if they get in, can they advance? One and done isn't going to cut it, because then you're just like the Timberwolves or the Wild or the Vikings or Minnesota United, or, pick your team.
Or the Gophers.
Or the Gophers, yeah. Well,
just about any sport. Okay. Let's shift and talk a little bit about the Vikings. As I said, we're going to get JR here in a couple of minutes. But how much does the preseason mean anything at all other than just tryouts for second and third string guys?
Well, you basically summed it up. I mean, obviously, if you're a bubble guy, you got to go out there and put something on tape that's going to, make Kevin O'Connell and that coaching staff say, we want this guy on our team. Let's not discount how important special teams is. It's paramount if you're going to win. So you have to have kickoff cover guys, return guys, people on your field goal and punt units, maybe in the interior line. This stuff we don't even think about. But if you have one weak link on a field goal team and somebody rushes in and blocks the kick, that's a disaster. So you're looking for those little things. As a fan, as a broadcaster, we talk about it all the time. It is counterfeit football. You don't see any starters. I mean, I know Kirk Cousins stood there in Seattle in that first game with the helmet on and the chin strap buckled. Like, I'm ready to go, coach.
Right.
But
he is not going.
They have to find out, too, how much do they value Nick Mullins as a backup?
Interesting. I was watching an old game on YouTube. It was opening day, 1973, Monday Night Football, the Packers and the Jets. Okay? And the discussion pregame with Howard Cosell and Dandy Don and Frank Gifford was what these teams did in the preseason. There were 14 regular season games back then and 6 preseason games. And they were talking about how important it was that I think the Packers were 4-2 in the preseason, and they're on a roll, and they did, and they were talking about statistics for some of the players and how well they did in the preseason. I'm thinking, man, the quarterback, they don't even play like 2 series in the preseason anymore.
And think about it, in a 14-game regular season to play 6 preseason games,
they
it's
did.
almost half of a regular season for games that mean nothing. But it was way different back then. The narrative has changed here in the last 10 to 12 years. It's really about keeping your guys upright, not having any serious injuries. But the irony is, and we learned it here in Minnesota. I remember a few years ago, Teddy Bridgewater didn't touch the field. They were ready for the regular season. And then he goes down in a heap in a non-contact injury at Winter Park. A very scary moment.
Right.
Thankfully, the Vikings medical staff got to him quickly. But that's how things happen. So I don't think you should be afraid to put guys on the field. It is football, right?
That's the last time I heard.
It is a contact sport.
Last time I heard.
All right, well, we got a lot more coming up. Stick around. We're going to talk more purple with Jeff Robinson, who worked in their front office for many years. This is 10K Takes, your Twinkies ticket.
The excitement is real at Fond du Lac Casino. With over 650 slots to play, there's always something going on right in the heart of downtown Duluth. Come in to enjoy 2 floors of entertainment where you'll find some of the hottest new games along with a number of the old favorites. Play at your comfort level, all the way up to high stakes where the payouts can be huge. Relax in a comfortable atmosphere and maybe get a beverage while you gather and have fun with your friends. Open 7 days a week so you can
have a great time out at Fond du Lac.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect.
Maya?
Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
10,000 takes rolling along, and we will continue to talk purple as promised. And joining us now is Jeff Robinson, former Minnesota Vikings player personnel guy. Jeff, If I am an outsider, a Vikings fan, and this is you, by the way, speaking, looking at this 2023 team, should I be optimistic, pessimistic, or should I be in a wait-and-see mode right about now?
Should be in all three. So I guess that equates to what? C or D, other.
All of the above.
All of the above. You know, the thing is, people forget that they won 13 games last year. And you can say that, well, maybe they shouldn't have won some of those games, but they did win those games. And when you win those type of games throughout the course of a season, you develop certain skills that carry over and allow you to win games in clutch situations for years down the road. And so they've got a lot of the key components back that allowed them to win those games, you know, with the quarterback, the receivers. So they've got some key components that will help them in tough situations. Now, this year, their schedule is a little bit tougher on paper anyways. Going into the season, they've changed defensive coordinators. So they've got some things that they have to deal with from an adversity aspect. But you have to be optimistic because they won the North last year.
What are your early impressions on Brian Flores? He had success in Miami as a head coach. He and the owner, there was friction, and they let him go. But I feel like it's going to be a more aggressive defense. They're not going to sit back in that Tampa 8, as I jokingly called it. They'll just be more, into it, more intense. Do you like that synopsis of what the defense is going to be like?
I like that synopsis, but even more so from not even including the Miami part of it, which I thought he did do a good job in Miami. But if you go back to when he was calling the defense in New England, you saw a lot of multiple fronts, a lot of mixtures in the back end to create confusion for offenses. And so I think even more so than what was going on in Miami, if you go back to the different looks that he showed people in New England, playing against a lot of the top quarterbacks, then that's where there's reason for optimism, because when he was in that role and he was focused solely on that role as a coordinator in New England, you saw them create a lot of problems for a lot of teams.
Kevin O'Connell goes out and hires a guy like Brian Flores to be his defensive coordinator. And O'Connell has done a number of things that I think when you look at it, you say, hey, I really like the way he's doing things, the way he operates. What are some of the things that have impressed you in his first, I guess he's a year and a half now under contract, but in that time, what has impressed you the most about Kevin O'Connell?
Well, I think the first thing that you have to look at is how the offense is stabilized. The quarterback had a good year. He played better all year last year. The receiver, obviously, Justin Jefferson, played exceptional football. So I think offensively in particular, you have to say that they did a lot of things well. Defensively, I think that the jury is still out in a lot of ways because they did have to change things over. The situation in the secondary has caused a lot of I guess angst for a lot of different people, on their own team, and they've taken a lot of abuse from programs like 10,000 Takes. But I think overall, the things that they've done, offense, defense, special teams, they've been solid.
JR, Dalvin Cook well. His landing spot is now with the New York Jets. He's going to be in the huddle with Aaron Rodgers. He gives them some running back swag. If he stays on the field, if Rodgers stays on the field, are the Jets going to be big winners this season?
Well, I think the Jets right now are in a situation where they're formulating a plan for now and the future. I think what Aaron Rodgers has done for them is he's created an image of confidence, an image of winning, an image of, we own this town, as in them versus the Giants type of a scenario. So, everybody's talking about the Jets. Everybody's talking about, the swag of the Jets. But I think it still comes down to a lot of situations, particularly in their offensive line, where they've struggled over the last couple of years. But I think if Dalvin in particular can do what Dalvin always does, then they're going to create a lot of problems for teams in that division. But that is a strong division. So it's not just the factor of Dalvin and Aaron Rodgers coming over, or the receivers that he brought with him, or the Billy Turner that he brought with him to create this offensive effect, because there's a lot of strong teams that are waiting to get a piece of the Jets starting with their first opponent, which is Buffalo. So they don't have an easy schedule, and they realize it. But that offensive line is definitely going to be an issue for them. So they know that.
Speaking of Dalvin Cook, question for you. Will the Vikings miss Dalvin Cook? And if so, what are they going to miss about him? And if not, why won't they miss him?
They will miss Dalvin Cook, and any team in the NFL would miss Dalvin Cook. Number one, because he's an excellent runner, excellent receiver, and an excellent pass blocker, which is overlooked quite often in conversations about running backs. Number two, that offense is predicated on the play action pass. And when you have an offense that's predicated on the play action pass, if teams don't respect the play action part of it, then that creates tighter windows for the quarterback and the receivers to get open. And so a lot of the big plays that you saw with their offense were created because of Dalvin Cook's ability to run the football. So whenever teams were scouting the Vikings, first thing that they were worried about is, well, where's Dalvin Cook? Because everybody knows to stop the Vikings, you have to stop Dalvin Cook because he's that talented of a football player. So when you take that part of the equation out of things, now you go, well, if we're not so worried about coming up to make sure that he doesn't get out of the gate on us right away, now the next thing teams will do is go, okay, where's the receiver at who got all these yards and is getting all these awards? So now the windows to throw to him on those deep crossing routes become a lot smaller, and which makes it a lot tougher for everybody. So not to say that the other guys that are taking his place aren't talented, but he's a special football player. And when you have special football players, they're not easy to replace.
Yeah, and I remember vividly, JR, about 4 years ago, Minnesota, San Francisco playoff game in Santa Clara, and Robert Saleh, then the 49ers defensive coordinator, now head coach of the Jets, they pinpointed Dalvin Cook. We're going to take him out of the equation, and it worked because the 49ers blew away the Vikings that day. I do want to ask you this. You went to Northwestern a few decades ago, but you're a proud Wildcat alum. How bothered are you by what took place in Pat Fitzgerald and all of that scandal?
Well, I'm bothered because anytime you hear the word hazing, it bothers me. I've known Pat for years, and I know what he stands for as far as his character and how he is as a human being. But when things like that happen, you have to take steps to make changes. And I don't know the full ins and outs of what happened because you hear a lot of different stories about everything that happened. But there's always cause for concern because when you're a parent and you send your kid off to school, you expect that they're going to be taken care of by the program that they enter, and so that's the cause for concern. But I think over the course of time it will play out to where the truth probably lies somewhere in between. But I'm glad that they're taking the steps to delve further into the issues going on. I think the timing obviously didn't help their football program, but it's something that had to be done.
All right, JR, appreciate it. We'll talk some more Big Ten with you down the road as it becomes the Big 18 as of next year. So thanks for your time.
Yeah. Geez, well, you need a tabulator almost to keep counting this deal now.
It's off the charts.
Thanks, JR.
He is Jeff Robinson, former Minnesota Vikings player personnel guy, with us here on 10,000 Takes. We're back with more right after this timeout. Stay with us.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect.
Maya?
Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
10,000 Takes in the middle of August. We're going to talk some NBA, believe it or not. Earlier this week, the NBA announced their schedule for this mid-season tournament that they're going to hold. When I first heard about this, I thought, what in the world? And I'm still a little baffled by the concept of having a tournament in the season. They're trying to, I guess, duplicate or replicate what you see with the MLS with soccer. So the Timberwolves, for example, will have 4 quote-unquote pool play games. I think they play San Antonio. I think they're all divisional games from what I read on that schedule. Those will also count as regular season games. So they have dual meeting. And then if you make it out of your pool, then there's another couple, 3 rounds of play. And they have what they call a knockout round. And they crown the NBA's champion, and you win the NBA Cup. Are you excited about this?
Well, not yet.
Not yet. How about ever?
I have a few takeaways on it.
All right.
I think from the Timberwolves' perspective, why not? I mean, if they could win anything, that's going to be news. If they get this cup, it'll be front and center when you walk into Target Center, right? They'll make a huge deal of it.
I'm sure.
If they get any games with San Antonio at home more than they're allotted, that's Victor Wembanyama, the Eiffel Tower.
You are correct.
So that'll sell tickets for the T-Wolves.
That's a good thing.
And I will give the NBA credit because I'm skeptical about it. I think the 82-game regular season is a marathon as it is.
You're right.
And these guys get accused of not caring or playing for half the year, right? But they've taken a page out of the NFL playbook. You know, the NFL has a knack for being in the news cycle in the offseason, right? Well, the NBA, here we are. As you said, August, pennant races, NFL training camp, college football rankings are out, a lot of things going on. Lionel Messi's playing, and here's the NBA getting a lot of attention. So good job, NBA, because that's what it's all about now in sports. It's about staying in the news cycle.
Yeah, well, they did by doing this. By the way, the Timberwolves 4 games, this tournament, and I keep using air quotes, stop it. This tournament, just because I just think it's so goofy, will take place in November. So
That's odd.
Yeah, that to me is odd. I would think that you would push this like to the middle of the season if you're trying to
right after the Super Bowl.
Right, exactly. When people are finally done with football. But no, maybe they're trying to steal attention from football. I think it's going to be a big yawn is what I think.
And the games count, right?
They count. Those 4 pool play games count. Notice I didn't do air quotes that time.
I just took the positive spin for the T-Wolves that maybe they'll win this cup. On the flip side, You know what's going to happen. They'll go 1-3 and they'll miss the playoffs by 1 game because of these cup losses. So they better not have any hiccups.
Yeah, well, it could happen.
It could.
Timberwolves. And maybe you know what'll happen? They'll get to the cup final and lose.
Well, that would be very Minnesota.
Yes. All right. On that note, we will take a break. When we come back, takes of the day. I promise we won't be talking NBA. At least I won't.
The excitement is real at Fond du Lac Casino. With over 650 slots to play, there's always something going on right in the heart of downtown Duluth. Come in to enjoy 2 floors of entertainment where you'll find some of the hottest new games along with a number of the old favorites. Play at your comfort level all the way up to high stakes where the payouts can be huge. Relax in a comfortable atmosphere and maybe get a beverage while you gather and have fun with your friends. Open 7 days a week so you can
have a great time out at Fond du Lac.
I've been meaning to give you these for many years. I think they're perfect.
Maya?
Oh, I love your earring. Why didn't you try these?
It isn't just about vision, it's about care. Nobody cares for eyes more than Pearl.
10K Takes on television, another episode set to wrap up. We'll have takes of the day here in a couple of minutes. College football, ready to be front and center. The coaches poll is out, the AP Top 25. I don't think Minnesota made either of those rankings.
No, they didn't. As a matter of fact, I think in AP, if you added the points and votes that they got, they finished 38th, which is probably higher than we might have thought. They have one of the most difficult schedules in the country this year. I mean, their schedule is...
Yeah, the rubber meets the road.
Yeah, it really does. They've got Michigan. They've got Ohio State. They've got North Carolina.
They've got Iowa.
They've got Iowa, Wisconsin, yeah. So and those 4, all 5 of those actually are ranked. North Carolina's ranked too. I think they're 21st. So it's going to be a rough road for PJ Fleck's Gophers. But look, if they can win, then maybe they can prove something and they can win that Big Ten West, because, as I've said before, this might be their last chance to get to that Big Ten title game
That's
in
the
a
goal.
long time.
I mean, you're in this thing to win the West initially, and then if you can get to the conference title game, you want to win that, and who knows what happens after that. I mean, they've had windows. I would say the last 3 years, Minnesota could have squeezed in somehow, some way, as a divisional winner, but there was always a hiccup. There was a home loss to Illinois or to Purdue, or you can't find a way to knock off Iowa, and it all adds up. We bang on them for losing to, teams like Toledo or Bowling Green, and those are bad optic losses, but they don't cost you in the conference standings. So, not overly optimistic if you're looking at the schedule like you pointed out, but it's a chance, it's an opportunity. Win a few of those games, and they will be ranked.
Yeah, no question. Ohio State and Michigan are 2 and 3. Penn State's a top 10 team.
And their opener is going to say a lot. Nebraska at Minnesota on August 31. That's a Thursday night, 7 p.m. game on Fox, national television. So Matt Rule's come in, and he's the head coach at Nebraska. He's the guy who ran the Carolina Panthers into the ground after doing a lot of good things for Baylor, but he was in over his skis in the NFL, lost his job mid-season last year. So he bounces back to college with another one of those mega bucks deals, and they're expecting Matt Rule to be the next Tom Osborne. Mm-hmm. We'll see.
Yeah, we shall see. All right, takes of the day, I believe.
Yeah, we're going to find out what your mood is.
Okay.
Are you an angry American, a sarcastic Sam? Maybe you're a happy camper. What is it today?
Well, I know you're not much of a moviegoer, but I believe you may have seen this one, The Blind Side, the story about Michael Orr, who was adopted by the Toohey family. Leanne Toohey in the movie was played by Sandra Bullock, and her husband, Sean Toohey. They brought her into their home. He finished high school while he was with them, then went to Ole Miss. They helped him get into Ole Miss. That was their alma mater. And then eventually went on to play in the NFL. Played for the Baltimore Ravens, played in a Super Bowl. So, a lot of good things happened for Michael Orr after being, adopted, I should say, by the Toohey family. Well, now Michael Orr says, well, it really wasn't an adoption, that it was a conservatorship. And we've learned more about that recently with the things that Britney Spears has been going through. So Michael Orr now wants a piece of the action, the money that supposedly the Toohey family got. He claims that they got over I think it was like about $1 million, and that's not counting any residuals that they have gotten since. So he wants a piece of the action, and so he's going to court. They're marching into court, and there is going to be a trial, perhaps. Maybe they'll settle out of court. The Tooheys claim that they only made $14,000 on the book, and that was it. So there's a big difference there between $1 million and $14,000.
I see a sequel coming out in Hollywood, and it may not be as pretty as the original.
No. So believe what you want when it comes to Hollywood. But Michael Orr says that the story is not as pretty as it may have seemed when it came out on the big screen.
All right, well, let's see what the mood meter says.
Yes.
You're a sarcastic Sam, throwing some shade on Hollywood and the whole business of making movies, which is really make-believe in a lot of ways.
Well, it is.
All right, well, my take of the day is this. The Minnesota Twins are currently in first place.
Wait a minute. What is that?
That's the new Twins logo. It's been getting panned by people like you, by the New York Yankees broadcast team a few months ago. Well, I kind of like it. I do. I'm not going to lie to you. I think it's okay. I love the TC. That's tradition. This is a little new school. I like the Star of the North. But I'm not quite yet ready to buy a Minnesota cap with that star on it. I need the Twins to win a playoff series.
Me too.
Okay? I'm going to throw the gauntlet down. You want to sell more of those things? Then win a postseason series. And heaven forbid you go on a roll and go to the World Series. I'm not going to get ahead of myself, but I will buy one if they win a playoff series. I'll wear it on this show. I know you'll be thrilled to see me rocking that Twins lid.
Yeah, well, it'll go under my left front tire of my car if you get me one of them things.
All right, I think you'd rather have a Guardians.
No, that would go there too.
On that note, we got to go. Let's FedEx out those thank yous. One to Alex Yambrick, David Weld, Rocky, Jeff Robinson. For Wally, I'm Eric saying so long. This is 10K Takes, your sports ticket.